Hey, you guys, good afternoon, my Facebook world and friends. Sorry about the late start. At some point, I'm going to figure technology out and I'm going to know how to start from those lives that I scheduled. So if you're on my Facebook page, you can see us. We are talking all about toxins tonight. I've told you guys that I am bringing these women and other, there's no gender bias here, but into my connected interview series who have a huge history and knowledge on things that you guys need to hear about. So Melody Watts is with me tonight. Traveled to my practice. She lives in Meridian. You guys are going to get to know her in a little bit here. But the reason I asked her on is because she has got a huge following in her Healthy and Wise groups on Facebook. She's been doing this for a really long time. And one of the things that she's done deep investigation on is toxins and how they affect our brain and our body. She's highly versed in chiropractic, so she knows all about stress and subluxations and the things that we talk about in our practice. We, as you followers or the people I've been in my office, you know that we talk about the 3 T's all the time. Melody knows about the 3 T's: thoughts, traumas, toxins. We've got 3 forms of stress in our life. Stress isn't all created equally. We need the positive stress and some negative stress to help us grow. But one of those T's is chemical stress. Toxins, and it really plays into the way our body processes information. It can really bog down our system. We know that it causes irritation, inflammation, and interference on the way our brain and body communicates, which is highly, highly important because there's 300 trillion bits of information that are reaching your brain every second. We are consciously aware of 50 of those. I'm pretty sure we'd really like those messages to be there. And one of the things that I did just really quickly to talk about toxins to maybe hit home for some of you guys is that we spend about the average American 90% of our time indoors, in our home, in our office, and our homes and our offices can be from 3 times to 70 times more toxic than the outside. And a lot of people give herbicides, pesticides, which we're going to talk about, a real bad name, but you've got to go inside your home first, because that's where a lot of the exposure is happening. About 62 chemicals are found in the average American home, which is crazy. There's over 3 million kids that get toxic loads and poisonings in the United States every single year. There's so much happening. So what we can do inside of our homes is really, really important, especially if you're home with your kids. You are in your house all the time. This is a place that you can be really empowered to do some great things. In some of our scans that we run, some of the people in one of them that we're looking at in particular, it can really be lit up and detrimental when I see someone with a toxic load. So this is one that you and your family had fairly clear. And I can look at it and say, hey, you know what? This is a great job at home, Mom, Dad. You're doing awesome because you aren't having to deal with unhealthy tissue and heal and manage a subluxation. So highly, highly important. Melody has been doing this for how long? You gotta give us a little background here.
20 years chiropractic, right, experience. I was a CA for 10 years. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And I started having to look for alternative methods to heal my body. And I started to learn about the toxic load. And when you have things like autoimmune or genetic predisposition towards different conditions, toxic load is even worse for you. Your body responds even worse to it. So I had to really detox things out of my home in order to heal and to thrive. And so people nowadays go, you don't even look sick. And I'm like, great, that's just great. It's because I'm aware, right? So I heard, someone told me the other day, like, you're dealing with a lot of different underlying health issues. And I'm like, not really. Like I have, Hashimoto's, and I've had Lyme disease, and I've had, different things. And really, I'm just aware of it. And so I know what the triggers are, right? And I know and so what we want to do in our homes is become empowered and aware. Right now, like you said, people are just not aware. And in our country, they don't really manage the toxic load. They're very liberal in our country. I mean, things that are banned in Europe, they're just used liberally here, right?
Cosmetics,
house cleaners, everything. And we wonder why we're the #1 country for cancer. And, 95% of cancer is environmental, 5% is genetic. And so here people are going, you go to your oncologist, doc, I have cancer, or the doctor says you have cancer, and then you go, oh, well, let's see how we're going to treat this cancer, rather than going, let's see what's in your environment actually causing that cancer.
And allow it to happen.
That allowed it to happen. Something in your environment. What are you around? I remember talking to a doctor one time who worked in a hospital, and he was dealing with tumors on different parts of his endocrine organs and pituitary and things like that. And he was doing some really good proactive things. And I said to him, I said, what in your 95% of cancer is environmental? You know that, right? He says, yeah. He was actually coming to me for a consultation. Okay. And he was very open to natural medicine, Harvard grad, MIT, background. And I said, tell me what's in your environment that caused that. And immediately he goes, I've never thought about this before. Oh. But the hospital that I worked in had all sorts of radiation, and all of us doctors ended up with tumors on our endocrine system. And I said, okay, so you need to get out of that environment, don't you? And he was like, that's exactly what I need to do. He recognized. And so people don't make that correlation to what's in my environment causing this cancer. I just talked to another lady, and she had breast cancer. And I said, tell me what you were exposed to in your environment. She goes, well, I lived in an apartment complex that had lead. And I said, how long did you live there? 11 years. Okay, well, that right there. So we need to be aware of what's in our environment. So tonight is all about what kind of things can we be aware of. When you think about the big things like lead and radiation, there's a lot more. Over 60,000 chemicals have been introduced into society in the last 50 years. Let's talk about those, because we're using them every day in the home and we have no idea.
Exactly. Wow, that's crazy. We did, I actually wrote this down on a sticky note because I was looking back up the body burden study. If you guys have, or even if you follow the environmental working group where people are actually measuring chemical toxins in a lot of household things, the body burden study was done in the early 2000s. So this is like nearly 20 years old already, that they found in American women cord blood. So umbilical cord blood to the babies, they tested the blood and they took a look at what was inside of this. What are these kids getting exposed to because all of this stuff is so high? Yes,
in utero, when our brain and nervous system is developing.
So vital and important. 287 chemicals on average. 287. 180 of those were carcinogens, basically. So knowing that they're going to cause cancer or could cause cancer. 217 are neurotoxins, and 207 could cause potential birth defects and developmental delays. A lot of the things that we're dealing with today. So we're talking about unknowingly consuming all of these toxins, harbored inside of our placenta, traveling into that umbilical cord, into our baby's developing brain and nervous system. And a lot of the stuff that we are looking at, especially in our practice, is developmental delays. We look at how what can happen in utero. Not only we say you get your mother's nervous system, you obviously get everything that we're consuming, not only in our mind, but in our body. So these kids can start out life, I say with your bucket just more than overflowing with crap. Now their liver's got to try to detoxify this. And if our bodies were designed to be healthy, to self-heal and self-regulate, what environment do they need to be in to be able to do that? And toxins are a huge piece of this.
And I hear the argument a lot. Well, our bodies are they're designed to deal with those toxins. You're like, you're absolutely right. Your body is designed to deal with a certain amount of toxins. But if the toxins are reaching the placenta, which the body is going to do everything it can to not let the baby have anything bad. In fact, it will leach nutrients from the mother to make sure. That's why mothers get baby brain when they're pregnant, because the baby needs the fat, and it's literally being leached out of the mother's nervous system so that the baby has enough fat to develop its brain. 80% of the brain is fat. So we need to make sure that, so the body is basically protecting, and yet there's still 287 chemicals found in the umbilical cord. That's after our body did its absolute best to make sure baby doesn't get poisoned. Yeah. So and now we're seeing in the last 20 years this onslaught of autism and ADHD and ADD and all these things that you see in your practice. Yeah. And so we really need to look at this, what I like to call chemical subluxation in chiropractic, because it actually warps the nervous system. And one of the things people don't recognize is when these chemicals are going into the baby's bloodstream, it actually turns on DNA. So you're turning on bad DNA, or you're making good DNA get mutated. And that's actually what cancer is. Good DNA is being mutated. So we want to make sure that we're turning on good DNA and giving the body good information to turn on good DNA. What I love about using some of the products we're going to be talking about to reduce toxic load is they also turn on good DNA, which some people don't realize when they're using things like essential oils that are certified pure, because you got to remember 95% of essential oils are adulterated. It's only getting worse with the trend of natural medicine. Adulteration is only getting worse in the industry. So brand is very important. Transparency, testing results, things like that. Are they free of synthetics, adulteration, dilution, and heavy metals? Because those are just as bad as the chemicals in the environment. So if you're using a brand that is not certified pure, then you're pretty much just giving yourself another toxic load. I'll give you an example. People use car fresheners and air fresheners in their home, right? Febreze. Yeah. Let's use fragrance. Let's use perfume right on our thyroid gland and wonder why we're the #1 country for thyroid medication. Let's use all these heavy metals right here on our master gland, right? And then let's light candles so that it smells homey. And what they don't realize is that it's causing oxidative damage. Not only is it a neurotoxin, it affects sinuses, congestion, it causes irritability, but it's actually causing oxidative cellular damage. And when you're actually diffusing a pure essential oil that's actual real orange, real grapefruit, you're actually causing antioxidants to be diffused into the air. And so you're doing something beneficial while purifying the air. These have anti-infection type properties in them, so you're killing germs in the air while you're making it smell good, and you're actually not masking it with oxidative damage. You're actually, diffusing antioxidants.
Yes, so I hope the people that are listening that are like the candle lighters, the perfume wearers, the little things that hang in the rear view mirror, that we're constantly breathing this in. I mean, we're in a small space, and our body has to take this in. It takes 27 seconds for something that either touches your skin or is in and around your environment for it to be absorbed into your body. And we'd say this stress has to be processed. It would be great if stress could just disappear. It can't. Your body has to process it. It has to dissipate through the system. And the less we're giving it, the better chance it has to do these things like self-heal and self-regulate and do what it's designed to do. Thankfully, we have these amazing bodies that can do that sort of thing. But I wanted to back up just a little bit when Melody was talking about those genes that are turned on. You've heard me talk about epigenetics before. Epigenetics is what we found out, and that is turning on environmental factors that are turning on genes. So it's not that our genes are changing. People talk about this all the time of like, oh, gosh, all these genetic conditions. Guess what? We've had these genes. Genes change over thousands and thousands of years, not a decade, right? Not a decade. Well, we're seeing this. Genes are turning on, and that's important to know that environmental conditions are causing those sorts of things. So Dr. Bruce Lipton is a highly awarded scientist that talks about this because of who he is. He was awarded for figuring this out about epigenetics and environmental toxins. So
that's amazing. So I'll say something too about a synthetic fragrance. So we know that secondhand smoke is bad, and epigenetic studies have been done on smoking, where the genetic expression shows worse in the 4th generation than it does even in the generation where all the exposure was happening. So if we think about all that we're exposed to now, 4 generations from now, it's going to be much, much worse. So I'll give you an example. If my great grandmother smoked while she was pregnant, the genetic trigger is, or the genetic message is, air is toxic. Her children might be fine. My dad might have mild allergies. My brothers might have worse allergies. My kids have asthma. Okay? Now I reversed that genetic expression in my son, okay? But when he was 3 years old, he showed asthma-like symptoms, chronic cough, right? But I was, told to use allergy medication or steroids, and we chose to go another route. We decided to reverse that genetic expression, and we did, and we were very successful at it. So know that there's answers out there. If you had grandparents that smoked, when I learned this, I texted my dad and I said, did Grandma Marinucci smoke while she was pregnant? Because my son had asthma. Yeah. Did Grandma Marinucci, Italian family, they used to say, smoke, it'll make you have low birth weight, slim baby, have a slim baby. Yep. And he says she was a chain smoker. Oh. So here it is, not just me, not just my son, but my nephews, my sister's kids, right? Having these genetic expressions finally show up. But what's great about it is you can reverse negative genetic expression in 1 generation. You can go through and do that. So there's a lot of things we can do.
And we got, and to even go more on that topic, you've got to think about, you were in your grandma's womb. because your mother's eggs were developing while she was inside your mom's womb. So it does go generational. You're looking at like, I was in my grandma's womb. Wow, that's crazy to think about, but her health really mattered.
Right.
When my mom was developing, when your mom was developing, and then now we are in our kids, and generationally, it matters.
Yeah, and that genetic or that toxic load too, when we talk about things like herbicides and some of the things that are being introduced into society, they not only turn on genetic expression to express respiratory issues and neurological issues, but those same genes that are being turned on are also giving you an inability to detox. So we're seeing things like MTHFR gene mutations. I truly believe what turns on those genes to give you a lack of ability to detox are the chemicals, right? Because think about what the genetic message is, you know, chemicals, you're supposed to be able to detox these chemicals, but you're getting too much. So the message is toxic overload, toxic overload. And so what do the genes do? Everything is a toxic overload now. Now I have multiple chemical sensitivities. Everything's a toxic overload now. And so it's just, in order to reverse that, you want to remove and go, no, I can handle a few toxins here and there, but we're gonna start by just having a fresh slate. And this is where we teach you how to do that. And we're gonna start teaching classes on that here.
Yay! Yes. Our first class on
the 18th. 6:15.
Yes, please come. If you are like even just, I need to figure this out. Like, how do you maybe make some natural home cleaners?
And baby steps. Baby steps. Let's go. You know, for example, chlorine. Are you still using something as simple as chlorine bleach to clean your clothes?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Because what happens is when you're using that, chlorine actually interferes with iodine receptor sites. You need iodine for a thyroid, right? Are you eating?
And people, they're cleaning classrooms.
Right.
Bleach,
they're cleaning classrooms with bleach
that
they're sitting in. And we wonder why we have big thyroid problems here. And then add the herbicides that they put all around our schools that bind to zinc. The mineral zinc, glyphosate, the herbicide, the Roundup, binds to zinc in your body, a necessary mineral for a thyroid and immune system function.
I was just going to say, how many people that are said you need more zinc, and you're like,
why am I so deficient? Well, it's not just even the Roundup too, it's the Roundup in the food people are eating. When they eat GMO food, some people are like, oh, GMOs, save the world, feed the world. And that's great if they didn't inject it with glyphosate, and if they didn't spray the crops with glyphosate, they've, genetically modified the crops to handle the poison, but are we genetically modified to handle the poison? And that's what we're finding is lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit of people, brown sprayers that spray Roundup. They're now getting cancer and they're winning $80 million lawsuits. And we've seen lawsuit after lawsuit of it proving that these herbicides cause cancer. They're already banned in Europe. These were banned in Europe years ago. They don't have the cancer there that we have here. So we want to talk about not only how to limit exposure, but also what can we do? Are there binders we can take, right? Like things that are going to help with the production of glutathione in the body, which is going to help, we produce glutathione. We're supposed to produce glutathione. That's what binds to toxins and pulls them out. But our load, we can't handle it. We're not producing enough glutathione to keep up with our toxic load. So these are the kind of things we're going to teach you. And we'll teach you baby steps. We'll give you, here's where to start. And
simple.
Yeah. And I'm a simple person. I'm not somebody that can be like, okay, buy all these ingredients and make everything homemade and make it confusing, because that's just too much for me. It's got to be really simple. So I teach you really simple ways to detox your home.
I love that. So wherever you're at on your health spectrum of knowing, where you could eliminate a chemical, step into it. I've been doing this for a long time too. People are like, how did you get this far? It's taken a long time. It really has. It's educating yourself. It's understanding, like you said, being made aware of this.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to get our bodies back to the basics. He says all the time, let's get back to the basics of clean air, clean food, clean
laundry
health.
That's like the big one.
Yes.
I'm like, when people have eczema and rashes and allergies, I'm like, that's one of the first things. What kind of laundry detergent are you using? The fabric softener is one of the worst things. One of the highest toxins in your home is your fabric softener.
Yeah, dryer sheets.
Yeah.
Delicious. Okay, do you have anything else you want to share with them?
I think that's good. Just know that it's a lot of information, but we are going to give you baby steps. We'll start with just a few things you can do to start reducing your toxic load, and then also a few things you can use to help increase cellular function and antioxidants, so that you can start putting off some of the oxidative damage that's happening on a daily basis. Just as we age, we have oxidative damage. And so there's certain things we can do to increase antioxidation.
I love this. Okay, thank you so much for coming on. Oh my gosh. So this is gonna be great. You guys gotta come with us. Come and see this on the 18th and continue following us. I know next week we've got someone doing neurofeedback, so looking at brainwaves and how the body processes stress that way. It's super cool. So she's going to be on here next week. And then also we're going to post some stuff in the link. So resources to register for this class, resources to follow us, and get more updates when we're doing things like this, educational pieces to make your home healthy, make your body healthy, make your brain healthy, live the life that you deserve. And then women, just to keep a little, stay tuned, we're going to have a special women's event in May at our office, a vision workshop. So I'll post the link there if you want to save a seat.
I want to save a seat.
Yay, this was fun. Thank you guys. Have a good night. And